Well, to discuss the VBS scandal and white-collar crime, we're now joined by David Loxton, who's a corporate investigations and white-collar crimes expert. David, thanks very much for joining us and welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
So I'm gobsmacked when you hear the numbers that are filtering through on this VBS scandal. And I just got to wonder, over 3 years, how is it possible that so much money could get looted and nobody knows?
Well, I think the point is that people did know. You know, if you look at any corporation, be it a bank or a commercial enterprise, a not-for-profit, there's a board that has oversight function. Any organization that has a corrupt board not exercising the oversight function, quite frankly, is doomed to fail. And that seems to have happened here. You know, I've only had a chance to peruse the report at a cursory level, but it seems as if there's a complete breakdown in controls, and there was widespread collusion. It's almost as if the people were cherry-picked to facilitate the corruption.
But, you know, when I look at the network that was set up for this, there's a debit on one end, a credit on the other. Somebody's got to go on leave at some point and come back and realize transactions are not making sense. Were there no reporting channels? Maybe even a low-level employee would have seen, hang on, this doesn't look right, and report it somewhere.
Well, again, as I say, I've had a chance to peruse the report at a cursory level. It seems as if those people were there, but they were then forced out. So there were the good, decent people trying to make a statement, and then there were reasons found to terminate them.
Where's the biggest failure here? I mean, you know, everyone's pointing at the auditors.
Yes.
They're the independent arm, and in theory, one last line of defense it should have been, but they were right in it.
Yes, I mean, that's a very, very valid point. Look, the breakdown is at a corporate level. You know, again, looking at the report, the investigator, Advocate Matau, says that the organization is beyond redemption. You know, he says it's hard to find an honest person in the organization, which is quite a dramatic thing to say. And then, again, looking at the findings, it seems as if the auditors, not necessarily the firm, but certainly the audit personnel involved in this, were complicit. They signed off knowing that the accounts were wrong. They were misrepresenting the true state of affairs of the company.
So now you've been at this game for quite a while now, and I just wonder, you know, we report the big profile cases, the Steinhoffs, the VBSs. Just how big of a problem is white-collar crime in South Africa?
Look, sadly, it's endemic. It really is endemic. It seems to be a way of life, and the general attitude seems to be your only crime is if you get caught. South Africans just are immune to it. Our norm is in fact the exception in other countries, but now it's become a normal way of life to be corrupt, and sadly it's purely greed. Every single case can be put down to greed, maximizing profit at the expense of ethics, standards, morals and the like.
What are the typical telltale signs that things are not as they should be, and that perhaps if you're an employee and you see certain things that you should raise some sort of curiosity? What are the typical signs that you've seen in your work?
Look, the most obvious one is a lifestyle audit. You know, someone earning R1 million a year who's got assets worth 50, 60 million, that's an immediate red flag. And it seems to be the personality profile of these white-collar criminals. They won't steal the money and invest it on the stock exchange. You know, they will want to have the fancy cars and the fancy holiday homes and the overseas trips. So that's your first obvious giveaway. The second one is lack of transparency. You know, when there's not proper access to full sets of financials and the like, when there's fudging. I'm not an accountant, but when you're getting a gazillion journal entries, that's another giveaway. You know, why are there all these journals being passed? So those are your typical signs which should raise red flags.
And also round sum amounts often.
Yes.
You know, life isn't it's always got comma something, but sometimes when fraud's happening, it's round sum amounts, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And also, you know, if you see in procurement, if your cut-off for one signature is R1 million and everything's coming in at just below that, why?
So we say greed, but if it's endemic, that means our systems are just not good enough.
Yes.
Is that what we're saying, that our internal controls just either don't exist or are just not good enough?
Look, I think it's a number of factors. I mean, controls is one aspect. Sadly, South African corporates are quite negative towards putting the proper controls in place. They won't do your fraud risk assessments. I find in my line of work, the multinationals are very strict. They will invest money in proper fraud risk assessments and compliance controls, putting all the proper controls in place. Corporate South Africa sees it as a grudge purchase. They'd rather pay someone to come in after the event. So that's the first breakdown. I think the second thing is there's no disincentive. People see that, well, they don't see anyone going to jail. I mean, as you say, the media comments on all these high-profile cases, but how many well-known individuals have actually gone to jail for white-collar crime? There's no disincentive.
Yeah. I don't know where this is going to end and how we're going to fix this, but it does seem to be a culture that's just sort of become a prevailing thing. How do we turn this around? What are the things that you think we should put more in? Is it a greater line of accounting? What needs to happen?
Look, you've hit the nail on the head. It's accountability. And in particular, that's been one of the gripes towards government. In particular, is there's no accountability. When one sees senior government officials being exposed for corruption, nothing happens. It gets swept under the carpet. Likewise, the practice in corporate South Africa has been, let's protect our share price, let the executive who's involved in corruption quietly resign and ride off into the sunset. We'll pay him a fat settlement to go away. One needs to see proper accountability. So that would be the kind of stick, seeing people nailed, as it were. The other approach is that we need to change the entire mindset of South Africans, and I believe it begins at school level. I've been horrified at what one sees at the schools of lack of ethical training. You see schools placing far too much importance on winning at all costs, and the minute anything is at all costs, the cheating comes in. The allowing the steroids and those kind of things for our great rugby team. So it needs a total societal change, for us to turn.
We've run out of time, but one final question. So we've got the auditors, and some people might say that the Independent Regulatory Board should have been watching the auditors. We've also got the banks, and they must have some oversight, whether it's the FSB, whether it's the Banking Council. I don't know. It just seems to be so many regulators and watchdogs, and they've missed it.
Yes, look, again, sadly, what we see in South Africa is all these regulatory watchdogs don't seem to have much teeth, whether it's a law society or the accounting watchdog. Have we seen major failures? I mean, KPMG is the one that springs to mind that sadly is in the news all the time for the wrong reasons. The authority says they're investigating properly and thoroughly, but they're very thinly stretched. We saw that they're saying they don't have enough money to investigate properly. And that is the trouble, I think, with all these regulatory bodies, is the resources. To have one investigator assigned to a KPMG investigation is quite frankly crazy. It just doesn't make sense.
All right, Dave, we could chat about this for a while, but we've run out of time. But thanks very much indeed for coming through today.
It's a pleasure.